Imagine a world where the wrong idea could get you burned alive, and one dead factory worker decides to industrialize it anyway. Not with magic, not with privilege, with physics, patience, and 14 years of silence. Wayne died on a Thursday. A factory press in Dortmund came down half a second too early. A crunch, then darkness, then a ceiling of blackened planks and the smell of wet straw. He opened his eyes inside the body of a 6-year-old boy. Small, frail, completely ordinary. He did not panic. He did not cry. He listened. For 14 years, Wayne said almost nothing. He studied the language, the laws, the rhythms of this world called Veltarn. And the more he learned, the more he understood how completely broken it was. Magic in Veltarn belonged to one group of people, the aristocrats. They were also the mages, the same bloodlines, the same families, the same monopoly. Commoners worked with their hands and died young. Every blacksmith paid a tax just for the right to swing a hammer. The law was 300 years old, and it said only one thing: magic drives progress. Any mechanism built without magic was heresy. And heresy had exactly one punishment: the stake. In 3 centuries, the world had not moved an inch. The same carts, the same crooked nails, the same bent plows. Wayne's father, Darren, was the best blacksmith in 3 villages. He had been, at least before. A broken leg slowed him to half his old speed. His brother Mark had worked the Baron's mine since he was 15. He coughed every evening now. Red spots on the rag. No one spoke of it aloud. His sister Ella sold at the market what little Darren could forge in a week. 20 nails, 3 horseshoes, 1 hinge. The family owed Baron Sigurd 14 gold coins, the price of 3 horses, or a lifetime of Darren's labor. But Wayne had not spent 14 years watching and waiting for nothing. On the day he was reborn into this body, something had appeared inside his mind. A blue drafting table, rulers and set squares, a holographic workbench floating in his thoughts. It called itself God's Workshop. The first message had been blunt. Welcome. You are candidate number 8. The previous 7 are dead. Try to last longer. The system gave him material analysis, the ability to look at any object and see its composition, its structure, its hidden flaws. It gave him master points earned by creating things, which unlocked levels named bronze, iron, steel, and beyond. But it did not design anything for him. That part was entirely up to Wayne. The system was a tool. The thinking was his. So Wayne thought. For 14 years, he mapped every stone, every tree, every vein of ore in the hills nearby. He designed hundreds of blueprints in the privacy of his own skull. He waited for the moment. The moment arrived on a Monday when Mark came home and said the Baron had doubled the taxes. Darren froze at the table. Ella dropped her spoon. 14 gold at the old rate would have taken 3 years to clear. 28 at the new rate, they would never pay it off. 1 month until debt slavery, half the village in the same trap. Wayne stood up, walked to the workbench, and picked up a piece of iron. The system lit up immediately. Iron, carbon 0.3%, sulfur impurities. Suitable. Darren told him to step back. Wayne didn't turn around. He struck. The system suggested the angle, the temperature, the exact force behind each blow. 20 minutes later, a nail lay on the anvil. Straight, smooth, without a single flaw. Darren had been forging nails for 30 years. His best nails were good. This one was perfect. Darren picked it up, turned it between his fingers, and said nothing. The system flashed, perfect nail, bronze level 0, progress point 3% toward the steam engine. Below that, a message. Not bad. You've invented something created in your world 4,000 years ago. Be proud. Wayne smiled, and turned to his father to tell him he had a plan. Darren had not slept that night. Wayne heard his father pacing in the smithy, the tap of his wooden leg on the stone floor. In the morning, they sat across from each other. Darren asked how Wayne had known how to forge. Watching for 14 years does not explain a perfect nail on the first try. Wayne said nothing. Darren said nothing back. Then the old blacksmith stood up and said they had 29 days. If there was a plan, he was listening. The problem with the forge was simple. One man, one hammer, one bellows, all of them inadequate. Wayne's first sketch was a double bellows with a foot pedal, 2 leather bags connected by a lever. Constant airflow, hands-free, the forge burning twice as hot. He drew it with a stick on the dirt floor and explained it to Darren without mentioning another world or a system. Just engineering. Ella got 2 goat skins in half a day by talking old Henrik into a trade for horseshoes he owed them. Mark brought ash wood from the forest. They built the bellows in 2 days. By evening of the second day, the flame turned from yellow to white. 1 nail in 4 minutes instead of 10. The system rewarded them. Double pedal bellows, plus 5 points. Bronze 1. New feature, improved analysis, internal metal structure. Wayne looked at Darren's hammer through the system and saw 3 micro cracks at the base. He told his father it would break in 100 strikes. Darren found the crack himself. He looked at his son, said nothing. On the 7th day, they made 60 nails. The usual quota had been 20. Ella counted them with steady hands and stated the math without blinking. 3 silver coins a day, but 1 gold coin was worth 100 silver. 28 gold was 2,800 silver pieces. At 60 nails a day, it would take them 3 years. They had 27 days. Wayne had known that from the beginning. Nails were just the warm-up. The next blueprint was already waiting in his mind. A lathe. A wooden frame, a foot-powered drive, a hardened iron cutter. The workpiece rotates. The cutter removes a layer. A perfectly round part every time. Bolts, axles, bushings, everything that Mage sold here for 10 gold pieces per unit. They worked on it for 4 days. Mark built the frame. Wayne checked every joint. A 2-millimeter deviation. Too much. Rework it. Mark cursed. Then he reworked it. Darren hardened the cutter at 800 degrees, quenched in oil, tempered at 300. Twice as hard as usual. On the 7th day, the machine started turning, and 5 minutes later, Wayne held a perfectly smooth shaft in his hands. 20 centimeters, round as a spell, made without one. The system marked it Lathe plus 12, bronze 2. Message: the Egyptians invented it 3,000 years ago. You spent a week. Impressive speed. Ella said furniture makers paid 5 silver for parts like this. Majors charged 10. Wayne nodded, but that wasn't the point. He looked at the family gathered around the machine and said they needed more than one lathe. They needed people, raw materials, space. Mark asked what he was talking about. Wayne answered with a single word. Factory. Ella went to Crosstown before dawn, a 3-hour walk with a basket of 30 nails and 10 rollers. Wayne had told her not to sell everything at once. Show them. Let them touch it. Compare. Ella smiled and said she wasn't new to selling. She returned in the evening with an empty basket and 3 gold and 7 silver coins. The nails fetched twice the usual price. The furniture maker Olson took all 10 rollers and ordered 50 more for next week. Darren stared at the coins without blinking. 3 gold pieces in a single day. He used to earn 3 in 4 months. Wayne did the math. 8 or 9 gold a month at this rate. Good. Not enough. 28 gold coins. 25 days left. He needed more. He went to find an old man named Thomas. Thomas lived on the edge of the village in a house that hadn't been repaired in 30 years. 70 years old, alone, with no past anyone spoke of. He had arrived in Grey Hall 40 years ago and asked no questions. He could fix anything. He worked in silence. Wayne knew exactly where he had come from. 40 years ago, the Mages Guild burned the village of Hallmark to the ground. 300 people. The reason? A windmill. One man survived, a young engineer who hid in a well while his world burned above him. Thomas opened the door. His eyes were old and tired, but sharp as chisels. Wayne said he had come to talk about windmills. A long silence. Then Thomas stepped back and let him in. The house was cramped, but under the table and on every shelf, blueprints covered every surface. Hundreds of sheets, gears, water wheels, mechanisms, drawn in careful, patient lines. 40 years of work, never once made real. Wayne looked at the drawings and saw the mistakes immediately. Dozens of them. Not because Thomas was stupid, because he had been working blind, without a system, without an engineering education from a different world.
Thomas was a genius without tools.
Wayne picked up a water wheel drawing. Good design, but the axle was too thin. He said it out loud. Thomas flinched.
Wayne added that the axle needed to be a third thicker and that a bushing with an oil channel would work better than a bearing.
Thomas sat down slowly. He asked who had taught Wayne.
Wayne told a partial truth, that he could see the structure of materials and load paths since childhood. He didn't know why.
Thomas was silent for 2 minutes. Then he asked why Wayne had come.
Wayne said he was building a workshop. The Baron had raised taxes. The village had 25 days.
He needed a man who understood more than any blacksmith. Thomas replied that the last time he built something, 300 people burned to death. Wayne said he knew, and that this time would be different.
Because they wouldn't build in plain sight. They would build a factory, and by the time the guild found out, it would be too late.
Thomas pulled out his largest blueprint, a water turbine, rough, full of errors, but a workable foundation. He said he had been drawing it for 20 years. Wayne ran it through the system. 12 errors. The core idea was sound. He said they would have it built in 3 months. They returned to the smithy together. That evening, Wayne sat with Ella to map the next move. They needed a breakthrough in manpower. Ella named 5 people willing to work. Wayne said to call them a silver coin a day. Ella froze. A silver coin a day for a peasant was a fortune. Wayne replied, "First comes work, then money." In the morning, 6 people arrived, 5 from Ella's list, and 1 who hadn't been called. Rena, the daughter of a merchant from Crosstown, 18 years old. Sharp eyes, empty cart, and questions that cut straight to the point. She had heard about a workshop that made things like mages do, but cheaper. The furniture maker Olson, it turned out, could not keep his mouth shut. Wayne showed her the lathe. Rena didn't look at the lathe. She looked at the principle. She asked why the workpiece rotated and not the cutter. Wayne froze. It was a real engineering question. He gave a real answer. Rena pushed further. What if both rotated toward each other? Wayne built a model in his head. Processing speed would increase by a factor of 1.5. Load on the cutter cut in half. He told her she had a spot in the workshop. Rena smiled and replied that was why she had come. The second machine was built in 2 days, the third in a day and a half. Thomas learned by watching once. Show him a principle, and it was locked inside him forever. Wayne built the 4th machine using Rena's counter-rotation idea. 2 pulleys, belt drive, processing speed up by half again. The smithy was getting crowded. 4 machines and 6 people were knocking into each other. An old barn stood nearby, roof full of holes, walls crooked, but the foundation was granite, solid. The barn belonged to the village. The village was run by the mayor, Burger, a fat, cautious man who feared anything that might anger the Baron. Ella negotiated. 1 silver coin a month, plus roof repairs. 3 days for the repairs. Wayne designed the layout of the machines. A production line, raw materials in one end, finished goods out the other. Henry Ford would have laughed with recognition. In this world, it landed like a bolt from the sky. The 5th machine Wayne built specifically for Darren. a forging press with a lever amplifier. A long lever, 5 times the force. Darren could press with one hand and hit with the weight of 2 blacksmiths. His bad leg didn't get in the way. His back didn't ache. Darren stood in front of the press. His eyes were red. He wasn't crying. Blacksmiths don't cry.
He said that in 30 years, no tool had changed his work, and his son had done it in 2 weeks.
The system awarded 8 points for the press, plus 15 for mass production, lifting Wayne to bronze 4. By the 3rd week, 5 machines ran with 8 workers, 200 nails a day, 30 rollers, 20 sets of buckles.
Ella and Rena made the trip to Crosstown every other day, 1 gold coin a day, sometimes 1.5.
By day 20, they had 15 gold pieces, half the debt.
The Baron would demand the full amount in 10 days.
Wayne sat over blueprints at night, searching for a product that sold for gold, not silver.
Locks. A pin tumbler lock. 5 pins, a brass mechanism, an iron casing, a key with a unique groove. In his previous world, 20 euros. Here, it didn't exist. Ella took 3 locks to Crosstown. She came back with 12 gold pieces, 4 gold per lock. The head of the Merchants Guild had tested the lock for an hour and could not open it without the key. He ordered 20 more at 5 gold each, 100 gold for 20 locks. Cost price, 4 silver coins. 15 in hand. 5 locks in 10 days was another 20. Total 35. The debt was 28. 7 left for development. For the first time in 3 weeks, Wayne exhaled. He sat in the dark workshop, the smell of oil and shavings filling the air. Just like the factory in Dortmund. Candles instead of lamps, pedals instead of electric motors, but the same smell. The smell of production. The system, pen tumbler lock, plus 20, iron 1. New feature, steel processing, 4 times the strength. You've moved from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age. In your world, that took 2,000 years. You have 3 weeks. Then a pause, and one more line. Don't relax. The previous candidate reached the Iron Age in 2 weeks. Then they burned him.
Baron Sigurd arrived a day early.
A carriage, 4 guards. Grey Hall hadn't seen that many horses in a year. The Baron was a tall, gaunt man whose eyes seemed to calculate the worth of every house and every person in the street. Wayne waited by the smithy. Ella had 29 gold pieces in her pocket, 28 for the debt. The Baron asked where Darren was. Wayne said he was in the workshop, working. The Baron raised an eyebrow. Wayne decided to show him everything. There was no hiding it now. Berger had seen it. The workers had seen it. The merchants had bought the products.
Better to do this on his own terms.
They entered the barn. 5 machines in a row, 8 workers, Darren at the forging press. Clang, clang, clang. Bundles of nails on the shelves, rollers sorted by size, locks wrapped in oiled cloth. The Baron stopped at the entrance. He walked to the machines. He watched a worker finish a roller. He picked one up. He turned it over. He walked to the locks. He tried to open one. He turned the key. Click.
He was silent for 3 minutes.
He asked how much the lock cost. 5 gold pieces to buy, 4 silver coins to make.
The Baron blinked. Once. 1,000% profit margin. He asked who was buying. Ella said the head of the Merchants Guild, with orders a month in advance. Then the Baron asked the real question, what kind of machines were these, and did the guild know? Wayne said they were tools, not machines. A hammer is a tool. A lathe is a tool, just a complex one. The Baron understood the line was thin, but he was greedy. Wayne had counted on that. The Baron asked for a cut. Wayne offered 20%. The Baron said 30. They settled on 25. The Baron added quietly, if the guild came, he knew nothing. Just an ordinary smithy. Then he leaned closer and said something else. 3 years ago, his neighbor, Baron Reinhold, had tried to run production without magic. The guild found out. Reinhold was no longer a baron. His lands were confiscated. His family was in exile.
The Baron left. Wayne watched the dust settle behind the carriage.
25% was a lot, but the baron's protection bought something more valuable: time. And time meant machinery. That evening, Wayne gathered everyone and laid out the next phase on the board.
Second workshop, smelting furnace, water-powered hammer, their own mine.
The system had detected ore deposits 200 meters from the road, 4 meters down. Enough for 2 years.
Mark asked how Wayne knew. Wayne said he had seen outcrops.
Mark said nothing, because Wayne had not been wrong once yet.
When everyone left, Thomas stayed behind.
He said quietly that 40 years ago in Hallmark, it had been exactly like this. The workshop, the customers, the money, the confidence.
And then the fire. Wayne replied that there was one difference. In Hallmark, there had been no plan. There was a mill and there was hope, but no plan.
Thomas said that confidence was the first thing to kill you. Wayne replied that he wasn't confident. He was scared every single day.
But without the machines, Mark would die in the mine. Darren would drink himself to death. Ella would marry the first man who asked her.
And the village would keep rotting.
Thomas looked at him for a long time. He said the man from Hallmark who built the mill had the same look on his face.
The same foolishness, the same righteousness.
Then he left. Wayne sat alone with a drawing glowing on his mental board. A water wheel, first step toward true mechanization.
The digging began the day after the Baron's visit. Mark chose the spot. Wayne pointed the direction.
The system showed the vein as a glowing line beneath the earth, 4 meters down, then southeast. Iron content 42%, with a trace of manganese. Manganese made steel stronger. Mark gathered 4 former miners from the Baron's closed tunnels. Healthy men, quiet, familiar with dark and dust.
A silver coin a day and food twice a day. They didn't ask for details. Silver in a day was twice what the Baron had paid.
The first 2 meters were clay and sand, then stone, the pickaxes dulling after an hour.
Wayne made new ones, hardened by the system's specifications. Steel at 0.06% carbon, angled at 37 degrees.
The new pickaxes lasted 3 days instead of 3 hours. One miner named Grant touched the blade and said in 20 years underground he had never seen metal like it.
On the 5th day, they hit the vein. The ore came out in dark, heavy chunks the size of a fist.
Wayne checked it through the system. Iron content 44%, better than expected.
The first ton of ore reached the surface in a week, but processing it was a different problem.
They needed a furnace, not a forge. Wayne designed it overnight.
A clay kiln 2 meters tall, air fed from below, ore and coal in layers, temperature reaching 1200 degrees.
Thomas built it. Clay mixed with sand and straw, layer by layer, each layer drying 2 days.
While it dried, Wayne kept building. The 6th machine, a drilling machine. The 7th, a grinding wheel of sandstone.
The 8th, a winding machine for springs that would be needed for the next generation of locks, and eventually for watch movements, and for everything ahead.
After the 8th machine, the system flashed mass production bonus, Iron 3, new function, gear design.
Wayne opened the new blueprints and felt everything shift.
Gears, gear ratios, mechanical advantage. Until now, every machine had its own separate pedal. One person, one machine. With gears, one drive could run multiple machines.
All they needed was a common source of power.
A water wheel.
Wayne pulled out Thomas's water turbine blueprint. 20 years of the old man's careful, patient, blind work.
With gear knowledge now unlocked, Wayne could fix all 12 errors. He worked for 3 nights straight. During the day, he managed the workshop. At night, he redesigned the wheel. 3 meters in diameter, 12 blades, oak frame, iron axle, oil channel bearings, gear ratio 4:1.
Enough power to drive 6 machines simultaneously.
The nearest river was 1.5 miles away.
The stream was 400 meters, not powerful enough on its own.
Wayne studied the stream through the system. Water flow, 120 liters per minute. Elevation drop, 2 meters over 50.
Enough for a wheel 1.5 meters in diameter. Half the power he wanted. Enough for 3 machines freed from pedals.
3 people free to do other work. He made the call, build on the stream, expand to the river later.
He told Thomas. Thomas looked at the revised drawing without moving.
Then he picked up a piece of chalk and pointed to one detail, the blade mounting.
Wayne had put in a bolt. Thomas said a wedge was needed. A bolt would loosen from vibration. Wayne checked it through the system. Thomas was right. The vibration from water flow would loosen the bolt in 2 weeks. A wedge would hold for a year.
Wayne corrected the drawing. He looked at Thomas and said those 20 years had not been wasted.
Thomas didn't answer, but he stood half a centimeter taller.
Rena organized the canal construction, 200 meters. She divided it into 10 sections of 20 meters each, assigned 1 worker per section, set a daily quota. Whoever finished faster helped their neighbor. A week later, the channel was ready.
Wayne watched Rena work and realized she wasn't digging. She was managing, counting, assigning, adjusting.
She was doing what in his world was called logistics, and she did it like she had been born for it. He asked where she had learned. She said from her father's shop. Trade meant logistics, accounting, task allocation. Her father had managed 20 suppliers across 6 cities. She had been helping since age 12. Wayne thought, in a world without business schools, a merchant's shop was the best education available. The furnace was dry by the end of the 3rd week. They ran the first smelting at evening. Ore and charcoal in layers, double bellows pushing air, temperature climbing. 800 degrees, 900, 1,000, 1,200. 6 hours later, Wayne opened the bottom vent. A chunk of pig iron the size of a child's head tumbled out, white hot.
Darren grabbed it with tongs and set it on the forging press. He struck. Sparks flew to the ceiling. Slag flew off in chunks.
Beneath the slag, pure iron, 12 kilograms per melt. Enough for 40 locks, 800 nails, 20 sets of machine parts. Mark stood by the furnace, looking at the pig iron, then at his hands, then at Wayne. He said he had hauled ore for the Baron for 10 years at 3 pennies a day, and now they were smelting their own iron in their own furnace from their own ore. Mark never smiled, but his voice was different. Ella had updated the costs. Iron from their own ore cost 2 silver coins per kilogram. They had been buying it from the Mages for 20. A 10-to-1 difference. Each lock now cost 2 silver to make instead of 4. Profits were climbing. 1 month in, 20 workers, 12 in the workshop, 4 in the mine, 2 on the canal, 2 making charcoal.
Rena managed logistics. Ella handled sales. Thomas designed under Wayne's guidance. Darren forged. Mark ran the mine.
35 people depended directly or indirectly on the workshop, 1/6 of the village. Revenue, 5 gold pieces a day. Net profit, after materials, wages, and the Baron's 25%, 1.5 gold pieces clean. 45 gold pieces a month. In the 2nd month, Wayne earned more than the entire village had in the previous year combined.
He reinvested everything.
A 3rd workshop opened, specializing in locks only, assembly line production, each lock through 4 operations, 1 person per operation. The production time for a single lock dropped from 5 hours to 2. Then came scales, commercial scales, accurate to the gram. In this world, only mages made precise scales. They cost 50 gold pieces each. Wayne made mechanical ones, a balance beam, steel weights, agate prism supports. Accuracy, 1 gram. Cost, 2 gold. Selling price, 15. Ella sold the first batch of 5 in an hour. The Merchants Guild head bought 2. Money changers bought 3. They ordered 20 more immediately. The system kept moving. Every new mechanism earned points. Iron 7, Iron 8. At the 8th level,
A section Wayne had been waiting for since his first day unlocked.
A steam engine blueprint. Incomplete. 10% of the design. Sketches and a schematic.
But this was the beginning.
Wayne looked at the blueprint in his mind and saw the future. Piston, cylinder, valve system, connecting rod, flywheel. Every detail demanded a precision he did not yet possess. He needed steel, not iron. Steel.
For that, he needed a crucible furnace, 1,500 degrees, carbon content controlled to within 1.5%.
He was designing the crucible furnace at 3 in the morning when someone knocked on the workshop door.
Hard, urgent. Wayne opened it.
Berger was standing on the threshold, face pale, hands shaking. A man had arrived in the village from the city. Black cloak, silver emblem on his chest.
The emblem of the Mage's Guild. Wayne closed the blueprint in his mind. He looked at the workshop, the machines, the wheel turning steadily in the darkness behind the wall.
2 months. He had thought he had more time.
He was wrong.
Wayne didn't go to the tavern. He went to Thomas.
The old man wasn't sleeping. He was drawing by candlelight.
When Wayne told him about the man with the guild emblem, Thomas set down his chalk. His hand stopped shaking.
As if his body understood, no more time for trembling. Time for precision.
Thomas said the man was a scout, not an inquisitor. Inquisitors come in threes: red cloaks, seals, soldiers.
A scout's only job was to look and report.
If he saw machines, inquisitors would arrive within a week.
Wayne asked what to do. Thomas said one word: hide it. Now.
They woke Mark, Grant, and 4 workers who lived at the workshop. 6 people, 2 hours before dawn.
The machines could not be moved, but they could be disguised. The water wheel. Wayne removed the belts, disconnected the gears. Without them, it was just a wheel, a mill wheel, for grain. Mills were permitted.
The lathes, he removed the tutters. Without them, each machine was a wooden frame with a pedal. Nothing. Junk.
The forging press. Lever amplifier removed. Without it, just an anvil on a stand.
The drilling machine. Drill bit and guidepost gone. The winding machine. Mandrel and clamp gone.
Thomas hid all the blueprints under the floorboards of his house. The key components, chisels, drill bits, gears, belts, went into a bag and down into the mine shaft on a rope.
Ella hid the finished locks and scales under the floorboards of the workshop, covered everything with dirt, replaced the boards.
By dawn, the barn looked like a dirty storage shed with wooden frames leaning against the walls. Darren's smithy had a forge and an anvil and bags of coal.
Nothing suspicious.
Wayne was not fooled about what a trained inquisitor would find. Oil stains on the floor, metal shavings in the corners, the wrong kind of smell. But a scout looks for flags, not traces. The obvious, not the subtle.
The man appeared in the morning. Wayne saw him from the smithy.
Average height, thin, black traveling cloak, a silver eye-shaped medallion on a chain, the eye of the guild, a symbol of surveillance.
He walked through the village slowly, looking at houses, at people, at the road. He stopped at the well, drank, walked on. Berger scurried alongside him, talking fast and without pause. Wayne knew Berger. When nervous, Berger talked a lot and quickly.
That was both good and bad. Good because words could distract. Bad because Berger might say the wrong one.
The man approached the smithy. Wayne stood at the entrance. Darren was hammering inside. The usual rhythm, the usual nails.
The man asked if this was Darren's smithy. Wayne said it was. The man asked if he could come in. Wayne stepped back. The man entered, looked at the bellows, the anvil.
Then stopped at the double bellows. He examined the pedal, the lever, the 2 leather bags.
Wayne waited. The bellows were the only thing he had not stripped, because a double bellows was a tool, not a mechanism. It had existed for 1,000 years. He had simply improved the design. The man asked Darren how long he had had bellows like that. Darren didn't stop hammering.
Between blows, he said his son had helped remodel it. The man asked if that was the son. He pointed at Wayne. Darren nodded.
The man turned to Wayne. He asked what he did. Wayne said he helped his father in the smithy. The man asked if the smithy made anything besides nails and horseshoes. Wayne said sometimes hinges and staples, just the usual. The man nodded. Then he walked toward the barn. Wayne followed, keeping his heartbeat measured. He didn't let himself get nervous. Nervousness is a sign of guilt. The barn door opened. Empty. Wooden frames against the walls. Bags. Straw. The man walked inside. His eyes swept the floor. They stopped.
An oil stain, round, dark, right under the spot where the lathe had stood.
The man crouched down, touched it with one finger, brought it to his nose and sniffed. Machine oil, not vegetable, not animal. A mineral-based oil Wayne had made himself from a seep 3 kilometers from the village. No such oil existed in this world. The man straightened. He looked at Wayne for a long moment, then asked what was stored here. Wayne said grain after the harvest. Empty now. The man looked at the stain again, then at the frames along the walls, then at the ceiling. There was a hook overhead, the hook where just yesterday the drive belt from the water wheel had been tied. A single strand of belt fiber clung to it. One strand, thin, invisible to the naked eye. But the man with the guild's mark did not have a naked eye. He looked at the hook, or he looked and didn't notice, or he noticed and chose not to show it. He stepped out of the barn. He stood in the street. He looked at the stream 200 meters away, at the canal, at the water wheel turning slowly. Nothing connected to it. He asked what the wheel was for. Wayne said, grinding grain. The man asked where the millstones were. Silence. 1 second. 2. Wayne said they were broken, being repaired. The man smiled. Not a cruel smile, not a threatening one. A weary one. The smile of someone who has heard many bad lies. He said he would return. Then he walked down the road toward the highway without looking back.
Wayne stood and watched him go. Thomas appeared at his side.
Thomas was quiet for a moment. Then he said, 3 weeks, maximum. Wayne asked, until what?
Until the inquisitors. If this man reported what he had seen, the wheel, the oil, the smithy that earned as much as Mage's, a real inspection would come. Wayne asked what had happened in Hallmark. How long between the scout and the inquisitors? Thomas said 4 weeks. The scout looked around and left. 4 weeks later, 3 men in red cloaks arrived with 20 soldiers. The residents were given 1 hour to gather their belongings. Then the village burned. Everything. The houses, the mill, the people who didn't leave. Wayne asked why people hadn't left. Thomas said because they didn't believe it. No one believes they'll be burned until the very last second. Silence. Then Wayne said they had 3 weeks. Thomas corrected him. 3 at most. Maybe 2. Wayne nodded. He went back to the smithy. He pulled out his leather notebook, the one with the annual plans, the 5-year plans, the 10-year plans. He crossed them all out. He wrote a new plan. 3 weeks. 1 goal. Make the workshop indispensable to the baron, to the merchants, to the city, to everyone who bought their goods. Indispensable enough that destroying it would cost more than keeping it alive. You can't hide, you can't run, you can't fight the guild. You can only become too valuable to burn. Wayne slept 4 hours. Then he gathered everyone at dawn. Fog over the stream, breath rising in the cold air. 23 people stood in the barn and watched him. Wayne didn't lie. He told them about the scout. He told them inquisitors would come. He said they had 2 or 3 weeks. Silence. Bran, the worker who had crossed himself at the sight of the water wheel, took a step back. Two others exchanged glances.
300 years of law, 300 years of executions, heresy, mechanisms, the stake. These words had been hammered into every peasant from birth.
Wayne said that no one was being held. Anyone who wanted to leave could go now. No hard feelings. Full pay for the last week.
Bryn left, and two others. 20 remained.
Mark spat on the floor and said that in the Baron's mind, he risked his life every day for 3 pennies. At least here, the danger had a point.
Grant nodded. The rest stayed silent, but none of them moved. The silence is its own answer.
Wayne laid out the 3-part plan. First, flood the market. Not just Crosstown, Murden, the capital of the barony, 20,000 people.
Every merchant, every craftsman, every official needed to have one of their products in their hands.
A lock on the door, scales on the counter, nails in the walls, hinges on the gate. When inquisitors came asking questions, every other person in the city should say they bought from Grey Hall.
Burning the workshop meant leaving the whole city without a supplier. Second, the Baron. Sigurd was receiving 25%, 45 gold a month. In 3 weeks, it would be more.
A baron does not surrender his income. He defends it, not out of loyalty, out of greed.
Third, the law. The guild pursued mechanisms, not tools. The line was fine, but it was there.
A hammer is a tool. A mill is a tool. A loom is a tool. All permitted.
Prohibited mechanisms are those that replace magic. But who draws the line? The guild. And the guild is made of people, and people bought locks. Thomas listened with a stone face. When Wayne finished, Thomas said one thing. In Hallmark, they had thought they were important too.
3 cities, a lord's patronage. It hadn't helped.
Wayne said he knew, and that the difference was that Hallmark had no plan.
Thomas said nothing. He did not agree. He did not object. He simply stayed.
The machines went back together immediately.
Parts lifted from the mine shaft. Blueprints out from under Thomas's floorboards. Gears, drill bits, belts, all back in place.
By noon, the workshop was running again. The wheel was spinning, the machines hummed louder than before. Wayne added 2 more machines, 10 total, 6 water-driven, 4 on pedals.
And a new product, Rena's idea.
A hand drill. Simple design. Wooden handle, gear drive, steel drill bit. A carpenter could drill a hole in 30 seconds, without magic, without a blacksmith, by himself.
Cost price, 3 silver. Selling price, 1 gold. Every carpenter in every city would want one. Wayne designed it overnight.
12 parts, 2 gears, an axle, a chuck, a drill bit, a handle, 5 fasteners. The gear teeth needed to be precise, or the drive would jam.
But cutting gears with that precision by hand was impossible. Wayne needed a gear-cutting machine. He designed one in 2 days, dividing head, hardened steel cutter, manual feed. Each tooth cut separately, the workpiece rotated through a fixed angle. Accuracy, 1/10 of a millimeter. Sufficient. The system, gear-cutting machine, plus 35 points. Iron level, 9. Message, in your world, this was invented in the 17th century. You're 400 years ahead of this world, or 400 years behind your own. Depends on your point of view. The first batch of hand drills was assembled in 3 days, 10 of them.
Rena took them to Murden. She returned 2 days later with empty hands and 10 gold pieces, and an order for 50 more.
The carpenters of Murden had fought each other for the right to buy first. One of them said it was the best tool he had held in 30 years of work.
Second front, the Baron.
Wayne sent Ella to Sigurd with a 2-month income report and a forecast. The Baron's share so far, 45 gold.
Forecast, 100 gold a month in 3 months, 200 in 6.
Ella said the Baron had read it twice, then asked what he needed to do. Ella told him, nothing. Stay quiet. Stay out of the way.
The Baron said he knew how to be quiet, and if anyone from the guild asked, Grey Hall was an ordinary village with an ordinary smithy
and an ordinary granary.
Third front, the law itself. Wayne and Rena spent 3 nights studying the guild's edict on the purity of crafts. Rena had brought a copy from Murden, 50 pages on parchment, 302 years old.
The gist? Any mechanism that replaces magical production is heresy. Creator burned. Mechanism destroyed.
Wayne read it and looked for loopholes. He found 3.
First, the definition of mechanism. The law defined it as a device that converts energy to replace magical production. Keyword, replace.
Wayne wasn't replacing magical production. He was creating an alternative. Mages kept doing their work. He did his.
A subtle distinction, but a real one.
Second, the tool exception. Paragraph 17. Hand tools used by blacksmiths, carpenters, and masons are not subject to the edict.
What is a lathe? A carpenter's tool. A large one, but a tool.
Third, jurisdiction and defense. Paragraph 41. The accused has the right to 1 item of defense, 1 item examined by the tribunal.
If the item is deemed safe, the charges are dropped.
1 item. 1 chance. Wayne fought for 3 days. Then he chose the lock.
A pen tumbler lock does nothing mechanical in the guild's sense. It doesn't replace magic. It doesn't convert energy. It simply locks a door.
Better than a bolt, better than a spell. Because a spell costs 5 gold and lasts a year, while a lock costs 5 gold and lasts forever. But a lock doesn't replace a spell. It exists alongside it. An alternative, not a replacement. Wayne crafted 1 lock, the best he had ever made, every detail polished to a mirror finish.
Every pin fitted to 1/100th of a millimeter, pure brass, iron without a single impurity. When the key turned, the mechanism clicked with a quiet melodic sound, like a music box, only better.
The system assessed it. Benchmark pin tumbler lock, plus 50 points. Bonus for masterpiece, plus 20. Current level, steel 1.
Progress toward the steam engine, 22%. New blueprints, crucible furnace, steel alloys, precision machining.
Steel level. You are on the threshold of the Industrial Revolution. In your world, it took 1,000 years. You have 2 months.
8 candidates. 1 has reached steel. You are the second. He lasted 3 more weeks. I hope you will be more convincing.
Wayne placed the lock on the table. Small, shiny, perfect. His shield, his only argument before the tribunal, if they came, when they came.
The 3rd month began with rain. The stream swelled. The wheel turned faster.
10 machines running now, but Wayne wasn't happy. Every day, a new mechanism. Every day, a new problem. Every day, 1 day closer to red cloaks. He assembled the crucible furnace in 10 days. Clay crucible, refractory coating of KLN and quartz sand, air fed from the water drive through an adjustable pipe.
Temperature, 1,500 degrees. Controlled. Stable.
The first steel melt ran at night. Wayne loaded the crucible. Iron, charcoal, carbon, at precisely 1%.
The system tracked temperature in real time. 1,300 degrees, 1,400, 1,500.
Steel flowed, liquid, white, blinding through the clay visor.
Darren stood beside him, his face lit by the glow, silent. Then he said, very quietly, that his father and his father's father and every blacksmith in the family had dreamed of their own steel. They had saved to buy it from the mages by the piece. Now it flowed into his forge, from his furnace, in his village.
The first steel parts went to the machine tools, guides, axles, bearing bushings. Replacing iron with steel quadrupled the accuracy and lifespan of every machine.
Then, steel cutting tools, cutters that iron could never match, drills that sank through oak like butter,
Hammers that didn't crack after thousands of blows.
Production picked up again. 20 workers in 3 shifts, morning, day, night. The workshop never stopped.
The wheel kept turning. The machines hummed. The hammers pounded. Gray Hall was no longer a village.
It had become a factory.
By the end of the 3rd month, revenue was 210 gold pieces a month. Expenses, 120. Net profit, 90 gold pieces.
More than the annual budget of the entire barony.
Rena had expanded trade to 4 cities, Crosstown, Murden, Woolhaven, Steinbrook. 4 carts leaving every week and returning with gold and orders.
The main products had shifted. Not nails and rollers anymore, locks and drills. Everyone wanted them.
New tools appeared every week. Hand vices with a clamping screw, planes with adjustable blades, steel squares with markings, levels with an air bubble in a glass tube. Each one designed by the system, built by the workshop, better than anything in this world, and cheaper than anything the mages made.
Master points flowed like a river. Steel 2, Steel 3, Steel 4.
At the 4th level, the complete steam engine blueprint unlocked, 40% of the design, enough to see the whole structure.
Wayne unfolded it in his mind and sat without moving for 3 hours.
Watt's steam engine, double acting with a condenser with a centrifugal regulator. Every detail, every dimension, every tolerance mapped in his skull.
And every detail told him the same thing. Building it now was impossible. The cylinder had to be bored to 1/10 of a millimeter. His best result was 5/10, 5 times too imprecise.
He needed a boring machine. For a boring machine, a metal lathe. For a metal lathe, precision ground hardened steel guides. For those guides, a grinding machine with a corundum wheel.
Corundum. Wayne stopped.
In the 3rd week, when he had scanned ore from the mine, the system had flagged an impurity, aluminum oxide, hardness 9 on the Mohs scale, second only to diamond. The impurity had been negligible, 0.2%. He had noted it and moved on.
He asked Mark if there was any rock of a different color at the lower face.
Mark said yes, pinkish. He thought it was barren. Wayne asked for a sample. The system checked it. Corundum, 12% concentration.
Not an impurity, a vein.
Wayne couldn't remember the last time he had smiled. He smiled.
Mark asked what it was. Wayne said, the future.
A week to mine and process the corundum, washing, crushing, sorting by grain size, binding with clay slurry, firing into wheels. A hardness impossible for this world. With wheels like these, steel could be ground like wood.
Wayne mounted a corundum wheel on the grinding machine, started the water drive, and brought a steel blank close.
Sparks, a high screech, the steel cut away in even, controlled layers. Accuracy, 1/10 of a millimeter. The very tolerance required for a steam engine.
The system, precision grinding machine with corundum wheel, plus 60 points. Steel 5, 50% progress toward the steam engine.
Halfway there, a corundum grinding machine in a world without electricity, in a shed next to the chicken coop. The previous candidate never reached steel level 5. You're the first. Don't get your hopes up. The hardest part is still ahead.
Wayne didn't delude himself. He began building a metal lathe immediately. Steel bed, corundum finished guides, lead screw with trapezoidal threads, carriage with cross and longitudinal feed. An 18th century design, in a world living in the 13th century. He built it in 2 weeks. During the day, he ran the workshop. At night, he worked on the lathe.
Rena told him again that he was going to kill himself. Wayne said 2 weeks, then he'd catch up on sleep.
On the 12th day, he fell asleep standing at the lathe. Mark picked him up and carried him to a bench. He slept 10 hours, the first time in a month. When he woke, Dorn was standing over him and said Thomas had finished the lathe. Wayne walked to the workshop. The metal lathe stood in place, solid steel, heavy, precise. Thomas sat nearby on a crate, drinking water. His hands weren't shaking.
Wayne checked the lathe through the system. Guide accuracy 1/10 of a millimeter. Spindle runout 2/100. The lead screw flawless.
He looked at Thomas and said it was the best lathe in the world.
Thomas replied that it was the only lathe in the world, that the best and the only were one and the same. And he smiled. Thomas's first joke in 40 years.
By the end of the 3rd month, Gray Hall's workshop held 12 machines, a foundry, a crucible furnace, a working mine with 2 faces, a water wheel, and a canal.
3 workshops, 25 workers, 4 trade routes, 210 gold in monthly revenue. Steel, level 5, halfway to the engine.
Wayne stood on a hill above the village and looked down. Smoke from the furnaces, clang of hammers, hum of machines, wheel turning, people moving between workshops.
A real factory. The first in this world. And somewhere beyond the horizon, 3 men in red cloaks were already saddling their horses. They came on a Thursday.
Rena saw them first. Returning from Murden with a full purse, she spotted the detachment 2 kilometers out and turned her cart around.
3 riders in red cloaks with silver buckles. Behind them, 20 soldiers in chainmail with spears and swords. The flag of the Mage's Guild, eye and triangle on black canvas. Rena drove back to Gray Hall in 7 minutes and came in screaming that they were coming.
Wayne was checking the crucible furnace temperature when he heard her. He calmly closed the damper. He looked at Thomas.
Thomas had gone pale. Not from fear, from memory. 40 years ago, he had seen the same red cloaks, the same banner.
Wayne placed a hand on the old man's shoulder. He said that this time it would be different.
He gathered the family in the smithy. Darren, Ella, Mark, Rena, Thomas, 5 minutes before the inquisitors would arrive.
He said, "Hide nothing. Show everything. Every machine, every furnace, every wheel." Darren looked at him. Ella opened her mouth. Mark clenched his fists.
Wayne repeated, "Nothing." Hiding means admitting guilt. They were not guilty. They had built tools, not mechanisms.
Rena added that 132 merchants in 4 cities were buying their products. Burning the workshop would cut off all of them.
Ella nodded. The Baron had received 120 gold over 3 months and would not quietly surrender that income. Wayne said they were all right, but none of it would matter if the inquisitors decided to burn regardless.
The law gave 1 chance, 1 item of defense. He placed the lock on the table. Brilliant, perfect, silent. If the tribunal recognized it as craft, the workshop survived. If not, he didn't finish the sentence. No one needed him to.
The squad entered Gray Hall an hour after Rena's warning. The village froze, shutters closed, dogs went silent.
300 years of fear, present in every closed door. 3 horsemen dismounted at the tavern. Berger ran to meet them and bowed so deeply his chin nearly touched the mud. Supreme Inquisitor Cross was tall, perhaps 50 years old, gray-bearded, with eyes like 2 cold nails. Inquisitor Malek was younger, smooth face, thin lips, hungry eyes. And Inquisitor Archivist Dorn, very old, very small, hunched and bird-like, with a fire in his eyes that made the other 2 look ordinary.
The man who knew the law by heart.
Cross didn't waste time. He asked Berger where the smithy that made things instead of mages was.
Berger pointed with a trembling hand. Wayne waited at the entrance to the workshop alone. Darren had wanted to stand beside him. Wayne said no. This was his workshop, his responsibility.
Cross stopped 3 steps away. He looked at Wayne, then at the building behind him. Smoke from the crucible furnace, the clatter of machines, the hum of the water jive. He read the formal charges. Activities falling under the edict on the purity of crafts. An inspection authorized. A ruling to be issued. Wayne said he understood, and that he was ready to show them everything.
Cross raised an eyebrow. Malek, to his right, smirked. Dorn opened a small black book and began taking notes. They entered the workshop. Cross moved slowly. He watched. He touched. The first machine was a foot-powered wooden lathe. He watched a worker turn a roller and asked what it was. Wayne said it was a tool for working with wood, the same principle as a potter's wheel. The workpiece rotates. The cutter removes a layer. Magic. None used, none replaced. A carpenter makes a roller by hand in 3 hours. On the machine, 10 minutes. Same roller, same wood, same hands, just faster. Cross moved on. He examined the forging press, watched Darren operate the lever, asked about the difference from a regular hammer.
Darren said the hammer was heavier. The hand was the same.
Cross nodded. Malek prowled through the workshop with hungry eyes, searching for a flaw. He found the water drive, belts running from the wall to 3 machines. He traced them back. Behind the wall, the wheel. Malek went outside, looked at the canal, the stream, the wheel. He came back and told Cross there was a water mechanism here, a drive from a water wheel to the machines, energy conversion, a clear violation.
Wayne had been expecting this.
He replied calmly that water mills had existed for 400 years and had never been recognized as a violation. The wheel grinds grain or turns a machine. Same principle, water power. Permitted under paragraph 17 as a tool of the miller and the blacksmith. Malek objected. A mill grinds grain, but here the machines make goods. The difference was fundamental. Dorn opened his book. He found the page and read paragraph 17 aloud. Hand tools and devices of blacksmiths, carpenters, masons, millers, and other artisans approved by the Guild Register are not subject to the provisions of this edict, regardless of the source of the driving force. Malek went still. Regardless of the source of the driving force. That phrase had been written 300 years ago to allow blacksmiths water hammers and millers water mills. No one had imagined someone would attach a water wheel to 10 machines. But the law was the law, and words had meaning. Cross looked at Dorn. Dorn shrugged. The law was clear. Malek pressed his lips together. Then Malek shifted angles. Even if the machines were tools, the products replaced magical production. Locks replaced spells. Scales replaced magical measurements. Paragraph 1. Wayne replied, Paragraph 1 defines a mechanism as a device that converts energy to replace magical production. A device, not a product. A lock is not a device. It is an object made by a person on a machine. A machine is a tool. A person is a craftsman. A product is a commodity. None of these words fall under the definition of device. Malek flushed red. He wanted to object. Cross raised one hand. Silence. Cross asked if Wayne had a defensive item. Paragraph 41. Wayne placed the lock on the table. Cross picked it up, turned it, could not open it. Wayne handed him the key. Cross turned the key. A single quiet click. Clean. Melodic. He opened it, closed it, opened it again, looked inside at the pins and springs and brass cylinders. He passed it to Malek. Malek shook it, threw it on the table. The lock did not open. He tried to break it with his hands. He could not. He passed it to Dorn. Dorn put on small glasses. He examined every detail. He listened to the click of the key. Then he took a small crystal from inside his robe and held it against the lock. The crystal remained dark, not a trace of magic, pure craft. Cross looked at Wayne for a long time. He asked who had taught him. Wayne said he had taught himself by watching his father work, by studying materials, by thinking. Cross asked if Wayne knew that the last craftsman found guilty under the edict had been burned at the stake in Hallmark 40 years ago, along with 300 residents. Wayne said he knew. Cross asked if he was still building anyway. Wayne replied, yes, because a lock on a door is not heresy, it is protection. Because a nail in the wall is not heresy, it is construction. Because a drill in a carpenter's hand is not heresy, it is work. And if the guild thinks otherwise,
Let them explain to 132 merchants in 4 cities why their supplier was burned at the stake for making nails better than Mage's.
Silence fell over the workshop. Malek flushed. Dorn kept writing in his book. Cross did not move.
Then Cross said the tribunal was retiring for consultation.
The deliberation lasted 4 hours, behind closed tavern doors, while Grey Hall held its breath. Wayne sat on a bench by the smithy and did not move. Ella brought water. He did not drink.
Darren stood in the doorway of the smithy, hammer in hand. Not to fight, because a blacksmith without a hammer is not a blacksmith.
Mark sat on the ground and coughed quietly into his sleeve, as usual.
Rena stood by the cart, counting options in her head. What to do if yes, what to do if no, what to do if they had to burn it all and run.
Thomas had gone home and closed the door. He did not come out.
Wayne understood. 40 years ago, Thomas had sat just like this and waited for the fire.
The 20 workers stood in groups and said nothing. Each of them knew what a verdict against the workshop would mean for everyone who had worked there, who had known, who had helped. In Hallmark, it had not been only the miller, it had been the whole village.
The sun crossed the zenith and began to fall. Shadows grew longer. The temperature dropped. Autumn evening in Grey Hall smelled of smoke and damp earth and fear.
The tavern door opened.
Malek came out first, his face stone. His eyes were angry. Then Dorn, small and hunched, book under his arm.
Then Cross, tall, straight, the red cloak like a wound against the gray village walls.
They walked toward the workshop. Wayne stood up and walked toward them. They met in the middle of the village street. Mud underfoot. Gray sky above. 20 soldiers along the houses.
Cross unrolled a parchment and began to read in a steady voice, the voice of the law, no warmth, no cold.
He read the description of the property, the equipment, the charges.
Then he read the results of the examination of the defensive item: pin tumbler lock, 5 locking elements, brass mechanism, iron casing, no magical components, no energy conversion mechanism.
Classification, handcrafted item.
Then the verdict.
No one in Grey Hall was breathing.
2 to 1. The subject of the defense is deemed safe. The workshop's products are classified as artisanal goods. The equipment is classified as artisan's tools under paragraph 17. The charges are dropped. The workshop may continue its operations.
Wayne exhaled, slowly, quietly.
Behind him, one worker gasped. Ella grabbed Rena's hand. Darren lowered his hammer.
But Cross was not finished. He added that Inquisitor Malek had filed a dissenting opinion, that the workshop's activities fell under a broad reading of paragraph 1 and posed a threat to magical production.
The dissenting opinion would be sent to the Guild Council for further consideration. Not a victory, a reprieve. Cross and Dorn had voted to acquit. Malek had voted to burn.
And Malek would not let it rest. The report was going to the capital, to the archmages, the treasurers, the strategists, people who did not test locks with their fingers. People who calculated market share and lost revenue and threats to 300-year-old monopolies.
Cross rolled up the parchment. He pulled Wayne aside, 2 steps from the others.
He said quietly that he had voted in favor because the law was on Wayne's side, formally, the letter of the law. But the spirit of the law was written by mages, for mages. The Guild Council would not get bogged down in fine print.
The council would see the numbers: 200 gold a month, 132 merchants, 4 cities. And it would see a threat. Not to the workshop, not to the nails. To the system, the entire system upon which the guild had stood for 300 years.
When the council acted, it would not send inquisitors. It would send an army.
Wayne asked how was time.
Cross said Malek's report would reach the council in 2 weeks. The council would debate for a month, maybe 2. The council was slow. Bureaucracy.
But a decision would be made, and it would be final.
Wayne asked what he could do. Cross looked at him for a long moment, then said,
grow, faster than the council can make decisions. Because the only thing the council fears more than heresy is losing control, and they lose control when a problem becomes too big to burn. Cross put on his gloves and mounted his horse. The squad set off down the road. Malek rode first and did not look back.
Dorn lingered. He walked over to Wayne, reached into his pocket, and placed a small bundle in Wayne's hand. A gift. Then he mounted and rode away. Wayne unwrapped it. Inside was a copy of the complete edict, all 50 paragraphs with commentaries and 300 years of precedents.
Marginal notes in Dorn's handwriting. 8 paragraphs underlined. 8 loopholes Wayne had not found.
An old archivist who had voted to acquit and left a cheat sheet behind. Why? Wayne didn't know, but he accepted it.
That evening, the village celebrated. The tavern opened until midnight, beer on the house from Berger, workers drinking and laughing, Ella dancing with Rena. Mark sat in a corner and smiled, for the first time in years. Darren drank in silence. Then he pulled Wayne close with one arm and held him there and said nothing.
Thomas wasn't at the tavern. Wayne found him at home, candlelight, blueprints on the table, chalk in hand. His eyes were red.
Wayne asked if everything was all right. Thomas said there had been a tribunal in Hallmark 2 the day before the fire. 3 inquisitors, an inspection, a verdict, guilty. An hour later, the village was burning. Wayne said the verdict here was different. Thomas looked at him and said that not guilty was just a word, but fire was fire. Words burned faster than wood. Then Thomas set down the chalk. He looked at his drawings. Water turbine, windmill, crane, gear mechanism. 40 years, thousands of hours. Not one of them had ever been real. Until today. Thomas said it didn't matter what happened next. He had seen his drawings move, the wheel turning, the machines humming, steel flowing from the furnace. He had seen it with his own eyes, and that was enough, even if fire came tomorrow.
Wayne replied that fire would not come.
Thomas smiled the same smile as on the first day, bitter and warm at once. Then he said, "Go to sleep. Tomorrow we build."
Wayne left. He didn't sleep. He sat in the workshop alone, the system silent, the drawing board empty.
Cross had said to grow faster than the council makes decisions. That meant 2 or 3 months, maybe 4. In that time, he had to do what none of the 7 previous candidates had done.
Build a steam engine. The 4th month, Wayne worked harder than ever before. 50% progress. He needed the other 50.
A boring machine, 5 days. Horizontal bar, hardened cutter, water-powered rotation, manual feed. The first cylinder came out at 0.02 of a millimeter, better than required.
A cast iron piston, 3 days of casting, drilling, grinding, lapping with paste. Clearance to the cylinder, 0.05 of a millimeter, less than the thickness of a hair.
A valve system, 2 valves, slide distribution, automatic control, no human hand needed. James Watt had figured this out in 1769. Wayne did it in a barn by an oil lamp.
Crank and connecting rod steel, with a flywheel of cast iron weighing 120 kilograms. Mark and Grand lifted it with 4 people. A condenser, a separate chamber to cool spent steam and return it to water. This single invention had doubled the efficiency of the real Watt engine. Without it, the cylinder lost heat with every stroke. The boiler, copper, hand-riveted by Darren, his finest work. Every seam checked by Wayne, through the system. No micro cracks, no voids, not a single defect.
3 safety systems, a relief valve, a Borden to pressure gauge, a water level gauge.
Darren forged the copper sheets and sang softly, an old blacksmith song, the same his father and his father's father had sung.
Wayne listened and felt something tighten in his chest. He remembered the factory in Dortmund. Sterile, automated, impersonal. Here, every part was made by hands he knew by name.
Hands that trusted him, that risked their lives because he had said it had to be done.
The watt regulator was last. 2 balls on levers spinning with the shaft. Speed up, balls rise, valve closes, steam drops, speed steadies. Automatic. No magic. Physics.
Plus 50. 100%. The steam engine blueprint was complete.
214 parts, every one made in this workshop, from ore dug in this mine, steel smelted in this furnace, on machines built in this barn.
The assembly took 3 days. Wayne and Thomas, just the 2 of them, no one else allowed in. Every bolt tightened to exact torque, every gasket red-leaded, every seam checked. Thomas worked in silence. 70 years old, 40 years of waiting. His hands rock solid, not a single wasted movement.
By the evening of the 3rd day, the engine stood on a stone foundation in a brick-walled room with a chimney cut through the wooden roof.
Wayne asked everyone to leave. They left, except Thomas.
Thomas said that if the thing blew up, he had waited 40 years for this moment and was not watching from behind a door.
Wayne lit the furnace. The system tracked pressure. Half an atmosphere. 0.8. 1. 1.5. Enough.
He opened the steam valve. The piston moved a centimeter. 2. 5. The connecting rod pulled. The flywheel twitched.
1 degree. 10. 90. 180. 360. A full turn. Then 2. Then faster. 40 revolutions per minute. Steady. Even. The regulator lifted its balls and held the speed locked. Puff, 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 puff.
A sound this world had never heard.
Thomas stood beside him. His face was wet. He was crying, silently, without wiping his tears.
70 years, 40 years of drawings into the void, 300 dead, a well of hot water, years of silence.
And now the machine, turning, breathing, working, without magic, without spells, without guildmasters.
They worked. The system's message came without its usual sarcasm. Candidate number 8, you did what none of the previous 7 did. You built a steam engine in a village of 200 people, in a world without electricity, with a lame father and a brother who coughs up blood, and a sister who calculates faster than a calculator. You built the future. For the first time in 8 attempts, I think this might work.
Wayne shut down the message. He opened the door. 25 workers, family, Rena, half the village, all waiting outside.
They had heard the sound. Puff, puff, puff.
Nothing like it had ever been heard in this world. Not a mill, not a hammer, not water, not wind. A new sound. The sound of what comes next.
Wayne looked at them, at the faces of people who had worked and risked and stayed when they could have walked away.
He said 2 words.
Come in. The guild council's letter arrived weeks later. An archmage was coming, armed with authority to take any measures. 14 days to prepare.
Wayne set the letter on the table. Through the wall, the steam engine puffed, steady, even, like a heartbeat that would not stop.
He had built the future in a world that still wanted to burn it. The question now was whether the world was ready to listen.